Buenos días desde Oslo. Hoy estoy con Jan-Peter Sissener, fundador de Sissener, una gestora noruega con $1 billón americano de dólares bajo gestión. Y vamos a hacer una pequeña entrevista para presentar el producto que es Sissener Canopus, una estrategia que lleva desde el 2012 generando muy buenos retornos ajustados al riesgo para inversores en la zona nórdica y en el norte de Europa. Y paso al inglés. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please, Jan-Peter, talk a little bit about yourself and why you founded Sissener back in 2009, but more importantly, why you founded the Canopus product in 2012?
Okay, what shall I say about myself? I am 70 years old. I'm Swiss-born, raised in Norway. I've been in this market since 1980, basically managing various investment banks until I stopped that in 2008 when I got fired in a bank called Kaupting. Reason I got fired was that I prioritized my clients, and we found out that the accounts were fraudish, and I told my clients to take their money out. Of course, the bank didn't appreciate that, and the way to the door was very short. Since then, I realized that I no longer wanted to have a boss. I had worked for banks most of my years, and it has not always been hunky-glory. And I started myself. I had some money, but not enough to open a family office. So I invited friends and family to start an asset management firm in 2009, which in the end was in the beginning was a closed-end fund, but later, because of the demand for liquidity, we started Canopus in 2012.
So what is Canopus and what is the objective of the fund?
Well, you know, when you are 70 years old and have some money, one thing that is important is not to be hit by losses, because you haven't got time to make the money back up. If you're broke when you're 30, you can always make money back. But if you're broke when you're 70, you are broke. So the idea is to create a solid fundamental return over time with downside protection. So say the target is net after fees and hedging costs, around 12% in Norwegian kroners, which would be about 10% in euros, without any major drawdowns. And we have now, 15 years or 16 years, so we're 14 in Canopus for track record. And we only had one drawdown year in 2018, where we did a big mistake in December.
And that was a loss of 5.5%?
5.5%.
Yeah. So what can investors expect in the strategy? What do you typically have in the portfolio, and how do you manage the strategy?
Well, first of all, what they can expect is to sleep well at night. They don't risk to go to bed and find out next morning they lost half their fortune. The strategy, that the investment process is more that we chase thematic investments. Defense, power up Europe, oil has been at time, nuclear has been, or energy in general. Defense has been a good ride, but I think where we're particularly good is to find out when all good news are in the price. And if you talk about the defense stocks, we held basically a long position in Rheinmetall and Leonardo, and took a profit after a tremendous run in short term. What told us to do that is that we saw 4 private banks launching their own defense funds and said this must be the peak, because these kind of people have the tendency of coming too late to the party. We also had a Norwegian defense company called Kongsberg Gruppen, which reached the same level of pricing. Problem with Kongsberg Gruppen is that only half the company is defense, the other half is maritime. And the maritime does not deserve the multiples allocated to defense stocks. So we shorted that and took a very nice profit in course of a short time.
So that's an example of a theme where you've gone long certain stocks like Rheinmetall and Leonardo versus short Kongsberg, and made money both on the long side and on the short side.
And gone back into Rheinmetall.
And then gone back in. Absolutely. So it's a dynamic strategy. It's an actively managed portfolio, more or less 35 to 45 positions, using predominantly indices for the protection. Is that right? Futures and options?
Yes, we are. We do time-wise have single stock shorts, but that's normally related to, for example, a bond holding. When bonds become equity-like, we like to buy equity-like bonds and short equity. We have done very successfully over a few times. So yes.
How do you see the world, and how do you see the opportunities going into 2026? Clearly, you've had some interesting themes in the portfolio, like powering up Europe. You've had the semiconductor theme with the race for chips. Where is the opportunity set on the long side? And where can investors expect to see money being made this year?
I think we're still going to see a lot of money being made in the energy infrastructure sector. I mean, Power Up Europe is not over. It has hardly started. If Europe is going to survive, we need to be competitive. And the main driver on the cost side is the energy side. We can't have a Europe that has 3-4 times the energy cost of China and 2 times the energy cost of the US. So I think that's going to be a theme. I think what you're going to see in Europe is that unemployment, unfortunately, is going to continue to rise. So we will see fiscal easing. You will see spending by the governments, and you will see interest rates maybe coming down. But at least fiscal tax reductions and public spending is going to drive the market.
Excellent. So just in summary, what we have is a defensive way of getting exposure into equity markets with round about a net exposure that on average is round about 65% over time. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we're more or less 100% exposed on the long side, but we have hedges that reduces the so-called delta exposure to around 65 on average, which basically mean that we should be able. In rising markets, we take good advantage of the rise, and in falling markets, we have breaks on. And we've seen examples in 2020 when the pandemic hit. We actually managed to get through March in 2020 very, very good, well. And same in 2022, when markets dropped 8-10%, we were up 8%. So breaks sometimes work. Not always, but sometimes.
Thank you very much for your time. Muchas gracias a vosotros por ver este vídeo y espero que sea de utilidad a la hora de evaluar si esta es una estrategia de interés para las carteras de vuestros clientes, que creo que puede ser. Un abrazo y hasta pronto.